Class 70 on Golden Doves. Welcome to Tora Andalus. We're going to continue on page 36 on the first full paragraph of the page. We're dealing with successive and simultaneous synthesis. And I think what you should have gathered until now is the idea that how we process information has a lot to do with how we structure and organize information, right? So we're going to go into that a little more deeply today, because the structuring and the organization of information, it applies to how we view the reality around us, how we understand politicians, people speaking, people doing things, and how we read text, including the text of the Torah. Let me give you an example. The text of the Torah has ta'amim. The ta'amim are there to tell us how to structure the information, right? So structuring information is essential to intelligence, and particularly to Jewish intelligence. So here goes. Like all serial data, right? So in telecommunications, you're going to have bits of information, right? Bit by bit by bit. That's serial data. Like all serial data, reality may be variously processed into certain well-defined artificial structures. So essentially reality, because reality takes place over the time axis, right? So it's like serial data. Things are happening, more things are happening, more things are happening, right? So when you process this information, you're processing it based upon artificial structures involving hierarchical and syntactical organization. Let me explain what that means. Okay, I'm looking at the street now. Let's say I'm looking out the window. And let's say I see these black wheels going on the street. So there's these black wheels going on the street. That's true. Wheels are rolling down the street, right? Or I can say these metallic objects are gliding from point A to point B, right? Or I can say the Amazon truck is there. So the Amazon truck has wheels. It's a metallic object gliding down the street, right? So there's different ways to organize the information, right? None of the ways are factually incorrect, but the question is, how do you organize information? So there's syntax. Syntax tells you the proper ordering of things. And there's hierarchy. So for example, if I see the Amazon truck, the most important thing for me is the Amazon truck is going down the street. I've hierarchically and artificially decided that's the important thing. The fact that there might be some rubber rubbing against the asphalt, it's true. There is rubber rubbing against asphalt, right? The tires are rubbing against asphalt, but that's insignificant. Well, it's insignificant for me as a human being. I'm interested in my Amazon package getting here. Perhaps for an ant, rubber rubbing against asphalt may have some significance, right? So these are all choices, right? It's always a question of choice, right? Syntax is a question of choice, right? Hierarchy is a question of choice, right? Serial data allows for various connections. So there's different ways I can organize serial data, right? It's up to me. If I see a police officer chasing down a suspect, I'm giving like a deeper now thing. I could say the policeman is bad, he's chasing that person, right? But that's one way of organizing the information, right? Or I can say, well, go back in time a little, that person just committed a crime. So the police officer chasing the person, I organize it differently. I say, wait, he's right for chasing the person. So a lot of these things are choices in how we organize information. There's different ways to connect the dots, you see? Therefore, to be significant, physical and intellectual phenomena must be context bound. So you always have to look at the context. The context tells you how to organize the information. If there is no context, then you can put together dots, but you'd be putting together dots unintelligently. An example I was like bringing is you take one picture of an Israeli soldier kicking a child, Arab Palestinian child. So you show that picture in the front cover of the New York Times, for example. So that's bad, right? And the picture is meant to show that the soldier is bad. But they're organizing information in that way, right? Because again, they could have shown, for example, they could have shown the child about to throw a hand grenade into a bus or something, a civilian area, and the soldier got there in the nick of time and kicked the child, preventing the child, for example, from committing this act of terrorism. So you organize the information, you decide where the beginning and the end is, right? Part of syntax, right? So when you have a sof pasuk and a pasuk, that's the end of one pasuk, and then now it's a new syntactical unit, right? When I read in text, that's why I have periods in text, so you know how to organize the information. So also you have to know how to organize information in the world around us. The understanding of physical phenomena, and here Harambam, my father, is talking about the world, the scientific world, the unfolding of the world, right? The natural, so-called natural processes. According to Maimonides, is one of the great mysteries of the universe. So Harambam refers to the Kabbalah. He doesn't refer to it. Today they use the word Kabbalah loosely. It was originally called Sodot Tora. So Harambam refers to Sodot Torah. He says one of the great Sodot Torah is the physical phenomena. This is what the rabbis refer to as Ma'aseh Bereshit, the procedure of creation. Interesting. We're not interested in creation as such. We're interested in Ma'aseh Bereshit, the unfolding of creation. How do I connect the dots? How do I organize the units, right? So you have Yom Ehad, Yom Sheni, Yom Shelishi. That's giving us a clue. But then there's smaller subunits and further places to organize information, right? So Ma'aseh Bereshit, the procedure of creation. Ranking second only to the mysteries of Merkabah, chariot. You have also Ma'aseh Merkabah, which is the highest form of Sodot Torah, but under that is Ma'aseh Bereshit. So the ability to view the universe intelligently and organize the information about the universe intelligently. That's what Ma'aseh Bereshit teaches you. Obviously, Maimonides was not referring here to the studies of nature current in Greek and Arabic scientific and philosophical traditions. So people have said, Maimonides was a rationalist, was a Greek thinker. The Greeks were interested in nature. Harambam is interested in nature. I mean, that's just not correct. That's sloppy. It really is sloppy, and it's just remarkable how in Jewish studies there is so much sloppiness out there, right? So the Greeks were interested in nature as a metaphysical, almost static-like entity, because they were less interested in time. They don't have this succession, right? They view things metaphysically, simultaneously. So it's a completely different concern, right? Rather, he was referring to the semiological reading and interpretation of nature, implicit in the belief that creation is the word and writing of God. So for Harambam, nature is not just nature, just things. There are things out there. Nature, the so-called natural events, are the words of God. And Harambam is interested in is, how do we connect these words to form a sentence to understand what God is speaking to us? That has nothing to do with Greek physics, Aristotelian physics, or metaphysics. I mean, that would be unimaginable in Aristotelian physics and metaphysics. What is the message to decode here that God is telling us? But that's what Harambam is interested in. So again, you see that this idea that Harambam was a rationalist. Oh, he's like the Greeks. It's immature. I mean, it's immature on the parts of people who say that. Maimonides compared the deciphering of the significance of physical phenomena to a person in pitch darkness trying to glimpse his surroundings during a flash of lightning. So imagine a person is in a dark, dark place, complete darkness. He doesn't know where he is. He's lost. Suddenly there's lightning, and for a moment he can see something, right? Like a flash of lightning, truth is necessarily temporal. So truth is bound within time. It cannot appear as a continuum, right? Because again, we don't think simultaneously. Simultaneous synthesis is a continuum. We believe there's a succession of information. So maybe they'll see a flash of lightning, he'll see something. Then another flash of lightning, it'll try to connect the two things that he saw. Maybe he'll see a third flash, and then he'll be able to connect something else. Even when one seems to be in continuous light, one is in fact only catching glimpses of rapid lightning flashes one after the other. So even when you think you see, there's light, continuous light, oh I see, you really don't see. There's a succession of information that you try to put together. Yeah. This conforms nicely with the subatomic world and the quantum world, where there are, flashes taking place continuously, right? The electron appears, disappears, appears, disappears, appears, disappears, right? So ultimately, that's what the world is, right? It appears as a continuum because that's the way our eyes and brain process it. Here's a quote. This is from the Moreh, the introduction. He would be illuminated by flashes of lightning, referring to the Nabi. So the Nabi has access to the Maaseh Bereshit, Maaseh Merkava. He sees like flashes of lightning. This is actually referring to Moshe Rabbeinu, rapidly succeeding each other, one flash after another, and therefore he would appear in continuous light with no interruption, right? So it appears like there is no interruption, but it's actually flashes which he needs to put together. For him, the night is like daytime. That's for Moshe Rabbeinu. To another, the lightning flashes only once during his whole night. So maybe a Navi has a Nevuah once, and that's it. A single lightning flash. There are also others who from one lightning flash to another experience long or short intervals, right? Each according to their Nevuah. There was also another who did not come up to the level of having his night illuminated by lightning, but rather by some radiant body or some type of rock which is radiant by night. Right, so some sort of stone that emits some sort of light, maybe a radioactive stone of some sort. So there are people who reach, let's say, the level of Ruach HaKodesh. So there's something lighting up, but it's not a flash of light, which is bright. It's a dull light, right? And then there are those who have neither Nevuah nor Ruach HaKodesh, right? Have darkness. That's what darkness is. So we think we live in the light. Very few people actually experience light, right? You can experience it through Torah, through Mitzvot and Midot Tovot, all those three combined, and Chokhmah, all those four combined. And you can have an experience of some sort. The truth is successive. Discontinuity or interruption is essential to its very structure. That's why you need to have white spaces between the letters. If the two letters in the Sefer Torah are touching, it's pasul. You need to have the space. You need to have a discontinuity, because we think in terms of succession. That's the correct way to think. This abstract metaphysical continuum is an incorrect way of thinking. So again, the Sefer Torah, just the two letters are touching. Sefer Torah is pasul. There has to be a pause, and then you connect the two bits of information, one on one side of the pause and the other on the other side of the pause. When mentioning the light emitted by radiant bodies, Maimonides remarked, even that little light also, which is shining upon us. So apparently Harambam had some sort of Ruach HaKodesh, maybe some sort of Chokhmah, I don't know. I don't want to be one of those, Harambam was it. I know from Harambam's writings that he was the greatest, absolutely, by far. But what was it when he says we had a shining upon us? Right? Even that little light also, which is shining upon us, does not emanate as a continuum, but it emanates and then it is concealed as if it were the flash of the revolving sword. So the Lahat HaChereva Mitapechet that protects Gan Eden, right? So even that dull rock that emits some light, it's not continuous. It stops and then it continues. That's somehow the Lahat HaChereva Mitapechet. And End of quote. The truth is successive. Discontinuity or interruption is essential to its very structure. So the structure of truth is a successive structure. This is a complete repudiation of Greek metaphysics. For those of you who are still in the back of the room, I invite you to join the front of the room. Harambam was anti-Greek rationalism. When mentioning the light emitted by radiant bodies, Maimonides remarked, I read that, right? The temporality of truth is also epistemological. It's not just that the truth outside of us is successive, and it is, as we see in quantum mechanics, things flash out, flash in, flash out, flash in, right? But also epistemologically, the way our brain is designed, it's through succession. The neural pathways, they emit some sort of flash, and the information is transmitted, and then another flash, and the information is transmitted. Physiological and psychological factors prevent us from retaining the flash as a continuum. Right? Sometimes the truth, says Harambam, I'm quoting, sometimes the truth shines upon us, and we suppose it to be as clear as in daylight, and behold, it is then concealed by body and habits. So we have a sort of emanation, a brilliance, an experience, an understanding, but then the habits of our physical, biological being covers up this light. And then again, we may again have an understanding, and then again there's a dissimulation, right? The same factors affect the manner in which the truth could be formulated and transmitted. Also, when you teach it to a Talmid, you can never speak the full truth. Right? You have to do it by giving different signposts to the student and having him combine the different signposts. You can't just speak the truth. You can point to the truth and hope that the person listening to you can properly process the information. Again, quoting Harambam, note that when a worthy person, in accordance with the level of his perfection, wishes to express something of what he had understood about these secrets, either orally or in writing, he would not be able to explain even the measure that he apprehended thoroughly and orderly, as it is done in the other sciences commonly studied. Right? So even if a person is intelligent, is worthy, has midot tovot, and he understood something, he had a flash of light, and now he wants to express it, either by speaking it to somebody or by writing it. It can't be done. Right? The words cannot express every nuanced experience, right? But he would experience when teaching others the same situation and when he found himself when he learned it. The same way when he learned it, he had to connect the dots together and create this new organization, new mental construct. When he teaches it, he's going to have to give the dots to his student to connect together. The student's going to have to connect the dots. Namely, that the subject will surface and emit light, right? And then be concealed, as if the nature of this subject would remain unchanged without apprehending little or much of it. That's the end of the quote of Harambam. The successive emanation and concealment of this type of truth does not mean that it is faint or inaccessible. So this type of truth, again, Maaseh Bereshit, Maaseh Merkava, it's not because the truth is faint. It isn't faint. Quite the contrary. What is really amazing is that many people continue in darkness, evading the radiant brilliance. The brilliance of this truth is all around us. We're like an ant in a museum of art. You can't experience Van Gogh, but Van Gogh is there. I mean, the paintings, right? Or Da Vinci. You can't experience Da Vinci, but the paintings are there. It's because he doesn't have the mental faculties through which to process what's all around him. That's us in God's world. God's world is incredible, filled with artwork, with unbelievable designs. We just don't have the mental capacity, or haven't developed the mental capacity capacity. The Nevi'im develop some sort of mental capacity, the Chachamim as well, which allows them to catch glimpses, and that's it. Right? So it's amazing how people continue in darkness, right? Referring to the unlearned populace, Harambam wrote, and the truth in its totality is concealed from them. And beautiful art museum. Notwithstanding the potency of its radiance, as if it was said concerning them, and now they have not seen the light shining brightly in the firmaments, right? Notwithstanding that the light is so brilliant and so bright, they don't see it. These are common unlearned. We shall not refer to them in this treatise, so Rambam was not writing the one in the Bukhim for the common people. End of quote. Maimonides' metaphor of lightning piercing the thickness of the night involves several fundamental ideas. One of these is the successive character of the Hebraic truth, but we will study that in the next chapter.